Well, we talked about the buzz that kind of arose, especially a couple of years ago. So building up towards the debut album, then was that a factor? The fact that people were talking about you.
Yeah.
Feels very different. I don't know. I can't tell. We're too inside it to tell. I mean, I'm sure people are like, when's that album coming out? Or
I think the only sort of pressure was maybe to do it a bit sooner, because when people first start talking about you and then maybe follow you for a year or whatever, then they want an album, which is fair enough. But we weren't ready, or we just didn't want to do it yet. We didn't feel like we were ready to do it, so it was kind of hard to put that off, not put it off, but sort of just be patient with it. But I'm glad we did.
I find that interesting because I read somewhere that you went on tour with Royal Blood, and then afterwards you wrote a bunch of extra songs, even though you already had somewhat of an album complete. So when you say we weren't ready, what do you mean exactly? What were you still looking for? Or what?
just felt right, didn't it? You follow your guts a lot in music. It's like a kind of intangible sense of direction that you have to steer from inside your stomach. And if you don't listen to that and you do what everyone else tells you to do, then you're going to fuck it up because it's not the right reasons. So as soon as we knew, we all knew. It wasn't like, oh God, shall we do it now? Shall we do it later? It was just like, cool, yeah, we're ready now, let's go. In fact, we even pushed it further, and the management was like, cool, you kind of got it, and we were like, nah, there's a little bit more coming. The world will wait forever for good music.
What was the last song then that you wrote that ended up on the album?
Oh, that's funny. It was Just Calling, actually, and that one, we were never going to put it on the album because I wrote it a week or something before we submitted the final list. And then for some reason we just changed our minds and all decided that it fit really well into the narrative, and we wanted a driving song, didn't we?
Yeah, it was weird because it wasn't going to go on, and now I think it's maybe my favourite on the album.
Well, I was going to say the same thing for them. This is not pandering in any way, but it's my favourite one on the album.
Is it? Yeah, we really like it. It's kind of like a weird, like an underdog. I like an underdog on the album,
Yeah. So what was the starting point of that song? Do you remember? You say you wanted a driving song, so.
Yeah, we like Drive soundtrack, the movie, Drive.
Sure. Yeah.
So it sort of loosely was based around an idea for that, and then the story of it was just like jumping back and forward in time, when you reflect on parts of relationships and you're not sure if they're good or bad, but they just feel complicated in some way. And you look back but as you're kind of steering forward and moving forward, and at the same time, it's all kind of in a conversation, the lyrics, I'm just calling you up, I'm calling to say, how does it feel? I like the directness of it, I think.
And this theme of what kind of, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but kind of relationships that worked or didn't work or were dysfunctional. So how did that arise as a theme? Because it's in multiple songs.
I don't know. I think I'm just like, I guess it's how I feel about things.
I guess it's one of the most intense feelings or emotions you have really in life.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I could write songs about getting the bus and stuff, but that'd be really boring. So.
Because one of the things I read was that honesty and then being direct, like you say, was very important this time around. So. Is that an easy thing to do then? Because, like you say, it's very big and personal.
It's if you by Five got this rule if I find something really hard to say, then I should say it. So like the more squeamish it makes my guts, like, oh God, I'm saying so much of this here, the better it is. The more important it is that someone should hear it because they'll relate to it.
In that sense, and this is a mean question then, but which song was the most difficult for you to write?
Good question. I mean, Crowded City had like 7 or 8 demos made. It was the problem child of the record, but the song was kind of written. It was just how we developed it that was like really long, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it's probably the oldest song,
Okay.
as in the one we wrote first.
Yeah.
But yeah, we couldn't get it right for years.
Maybe Blue Romance. It's quite hard. But then I feel like I kind of do that whole thing with the rose tinted glasses, that song. So where it's dark, there's also light. I mean, What Happened to You was kind of hard because that was very much like looking at yourself in the fucking bottom of a glass, being like, what the fuck happened? You had all this potential and you just pissed it all away. What a fucking idiot, you know? I don't know, I kind of find it easy to do that. I find it easy to self-deprecate in songs, almost.
Right. Well, there's one line you mentioned, Crowded City, and there's one line I wrote down from that is, have you ever been alone in a crowded city? So where did that line come from?
That's the only song that we wrote on actual tour, and I think it kind of I think I just wrote it after we got back from Japan, and you know, Lost in Translation, the movie.
Sure.
I always think about that film when you're on tour, because touring is such a fun fucking thing to do. There's no experience like it. You will never experience the world like how you experience on tour, but there is like a sad place that you can go to where you're around all these hundreds of people and it's all parties and bars and drinks, but you can still be lonely. Anyone can be lonely anywhere. You can be a millionaire and all of the pool and big houses and shit that people want, but you can still be lonely. And I think people actually are maybe more lonely if they're in certain scenarios.
So how important in those instances, in those situations, is it to have kind of the band as it is and to be as close as you are?
I'd really hate to be a solo artist. I think I'd be so fucking bored. Like, having a band is like having your gang. We're like the Warriors. You know, taking the streets. I'm gonna learn Kung Fu next and start making Kung Fu movies.
Are we?
Yeah.
I only watched that movie a week ago again, so it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too.
Well, talking about movies then, and you mentioned the Drive soundtrack as well. When you start writing songs, how much of a visual component is there in the beginning? And Tommy, I believe you. No, sorry. You're not the one who's doing graphic design, right?
No, that's the
so
drummer.
yeah, sorry about that. But, so how big of an element is that in?
It's
in the
really
creative
big, but I
process?
think it's really natural for us. You know, like writing songs is the hard bit. The visuals is easy for us. You know, like you just make what you see in your head when you write, and I think everyone who writes songs sees stuff in their head. Well, they must do, right?
Yeah, and it's not always. I guess it's not always sort of necessarily cinematic. It can just be sort of color or feeling. I guess people see and feel differently, but yeah, I think it's nice to take inspiration from movies when you're making music because it's not so direct. You could say I want to, if you sort of want to do something like the Beatles, Revolver or something, then you'll make something which just sounds a bit like that, but not as good. Whereas if it's a movie, it's not, you're making something different, it's just maybe has a similar feel, or I don't know. It's a hard thing to.
It's like more
explain, but-
interesting to be inspired by. When you said that, I was like, yeah, because like it would just be too literal to just be interpreting other artists, maybe.
Yeah.
It's more of a mood or a kind of overall
Yeah, I
feeling
guess
you
so.
try to capture.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to
No,
explain.
yeah. I always come to this point where it's a very visceral thing, this music, and then I have to approach it very analytically in a way.
No, but it's quite nice to sort of be made to think about it. You know, I guess.
But were there specific movies or specific kind of tropes in movies that inspired you?
Yeah, Blue Romance is like inspired by True Romance, the movie.
Clever.
Then obviously Drive. We got the Crows, which somebody pointed out earlier, like put Crow samples in to make it a bit like Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Right.
And David Lynch is super important. Wes Anderson. There's like a few just like benchmark ones, and I like the music in the movies and I like the visuals as well. We like them.
How does this carry over to the live shows? And is there a way you try to incorporate those kind of elements or colors, like you say?
We've got big plans for what we could do. I think it's tiny vision of what it could be. Like, we want to bring the stories to life. We do little things like we've got this cabaret sign that we drag around, which everyone hates. It's really heavy and really bulky and difficult to put up, which for us is cool because I like it because it reminds me of like, I don't know, Broadway or something.
I mean, it's tough because logistics.
Sure, right.
When you're a small band like us, and you can't afford 3 trucks worth of stuff. Because if we could, we'd probably fill them with just shit.
Yeah, so we like to do little nods to it, like have stuff like, toured with Jerry the Flamingo, just in case, just to try and make it feel a bit more like we were in Palm Springs or something.
But is that then and then this is kind of to round off, but is that then the vision or the kind of the vision where you are working towards, that you are working towards?
Yeah, a massive stage show is like the goal, and trying to work to the point where we have the budget to make the stage show that justifies the creative vision that we have. Like, it's really easy for videos because you just have to rent stuff for one day. But to try and, you can't tour a desert.
Right.
But if anyone's gonna tour a desert one day,
No. It's going to be so annoying.
just like sand in your
Yeah,
shoes.
sand everywhere.
Sure, it'll look
It's gonna
good,
look good
but,
though.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing to aim for, I think. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having
man.
us.
Thank you.
Can we just say that the album's out on the 21st?
Yes, you
So
can.
cool. Hey, we're Black Honey and our debut album's out on the 21st of September.